going to record this conversation, this webinar, so that we can get it up on the internet webs. And a little bit later, hopefully, let's make sure that you can all see me and everything. I will turn my camera on in case that matters. Just make sure, everybody, that you mute yourself. I've muted those that are here, and we will get into it today. Thank you for joining us for today's Anvil Lunch and Learn webinar, Brand Building via Public Relations, with your host, me, Kent Lewis. I am president and founder of Anvil Media and founder of PDX Mindshare, our sister organization that's a career community online networking group. And you can find me on the Twitter at Kent J. Lewis, and follow us at Anvil for insights into digital marketing trends at Anvil Media on various social platforms. So today I'm gonna talk about a couple different elements. You can tell I just made a last minute change and forgot to reanimate, but basically I'm gonna provide a foundational overview of social media elements you would need to build your personal or corporate brand via public relations, which is my original background before getting into the digital dark arts. Then I'm going to talk about 4 key strategies: securing industry speaking engagements or public speaking, writing and syndicating articles through third-party publications and blogs, generating press coverage as an industry expert, whether you're pitching proactively or reactively, responding quickly to press inquiries, and then submitting and securing industry awards. Each of these 4 disciplines I have used throughout my career at 9 different agencies and 2 in-house corporate roles to build awareness for the company, for my team, and for myself, to help further my career and that of the organizations I've supported. I will also conclude with providing some brief appendix of links, and we'll end with some Q&A. So again, thanks for joining me. I usually have a transitional slide just describing, excuse me, my background. I just had lunch. It's not coronavirus, my apologies. But I started my career in public relations in '94. By '96, I shifted over to digital marketing at a web development shop here in Portland. Although I was born and raised in Seattle, and that was my first internship was up there. I've been in Portland since '95. And when I moved here, I knew one person, my cousin, who was one of my first roommates. And today I have, hundreds, if not thousands, of connections within Portland, 18,000+ connections on LinkedIn. And, we average 100 press hits a year at Anvil, and we're just under a dozen employees. So my whole specialization and specialty is making a big impact with very limited resources. So hopefully that'll help you today. But before you get started on your path to getting paid 5 figures for speaking, or becoming a published author, or just looking for an early retirement or an increase in salary or responsibilities in your career path, or if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you have to wear a lot of different hats. The starting point is providing a foundational social media strategy. You need a foundation on which to both share and amplify your signals, what you're working on, as well as seek additional opportunities. So with a background in PR, the first thing I did over a decade ago was subscribe to Hootsuite, which is a social platform management tool. So I use it to manage multiple LinkedIn and Twitter profiles. I do use it to track some Instagram. I used to use it for Facebook, and then Cambridge Analytica happened and torpedoed that effort, at least as far as I'm concerned. So I manage Facebook manually as well as YouTube, but everything else I manage through Hootsuite personally. My team at Anvil prefers Sprout Social to Hootsuite, but basically both platforms allow you to post to multiple platforms at once, shorten URLs for convenience and for tracking purposes, allows keyword targeting or tracking. So you can see, I track keywords like Kent Lewis and Anvil Media and see when people are mentioning me instead of mentioning my handle. You can track hashtags as well. I also schedule tweets ahead of time, for the last almost 10 years. I've been posting almost every hour on average between 8 and 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, on originally it was Twitter. And then 2 years ago, I switched over to LinkedIn, where that's really my audience. Sorry, it was a sesame beef and green beans that are talking. And then also, so now I still share to Twitter, but I don't track Twitter as carefully, or I should say, I don't care so much about what happens on Twitter as much as what happens on LinkedIn. And again, the strategy to posting regularly for me on LinkedIn is that's my audience, other businesses and business owners and marketers. So staying on top of their feeds, I have 18,000 followers on LinkedIn. So when I post, they theoretically see my updates in my feed. So that's my strategy for using a Hootsuite for scheduling, monitoring, reporting. I have the app. I spend, probably 15 to 30 minutes a day reading through headlines and picking the best content to curate to post. I also have about 20% of my content are my past articles or recent press coverage or promoting events or podcasts. Maybe as much as 30% of my content in my feeds. There's some repetition as needed, of course, on a daily basis. That's my foundation. So I post on LinkedIn, it syndicates to Twitter. Or if I'm on Hootsuite, I post to both at the same time. If I post to Instagram, I usually syndicate it to Facebook because it's personal. If it's businessy or not compromising my privacy of myself or my family, I might syndicate it to Twitter as well, but I'm very selective to protect privacy. Whole separate presentation in terms of privacy and security, balancing it as a marketer and a family person. Now, blogging, I blog regularly or I write articles for a variety of sources. So on the blogging side, I will write for the industry website, trade organization, SEMPDX.org, for search marketers. If I have a topical something I want to say about digital marketing, I will typically post it to SEMPDX because I have access. So I don't need another editor to get in my way. So it's instant. Same thing with my LinkedIn account. I've posted over 50 articles on my LinkedIn blog. It used to be called Pulse when it first launched. And I will post, that is other business, more entrepreneurship content. Then occasionally I'll post to Anvil when SEMPDX or LinkedIn are not the right fit, but I've probably posted a dozen times in 15 years on Anvil, but I've posted on average once or twice a quarter on SEMPDX for years, and almost once a month on LinkedIn. But that's separate from my articles, which I typically publish on for the Portland Business Journal. In fact, I just had an article published today on how to retain and attract employees through the pandemic. And then lastly, podcasting. So I've done podcasts for Anvil, PDX Mindshare. I'm a podcast guest. And then I'm also have my own podcast as co-host with Mike Chase here in Portland for Podcasts for Closers. All of those are my foundational, primarily focused social media strategy. So if I'm not creating the content on social, I'm sharing it on social. And that includes upcoming events, past speaking event, recaps or links to SlideShare or YouTube videos or recordings. All of that, including this presentation or example of my foundational social media presence. Now, the most important presence you're going to need as a professional is LinkedIn. Twitter is great if you're the president. YouTube is great if you're a gamer or unbox products or whatever. But really, LinkedIn is the ideal platform for reaching out to other business owners, like-minded professionals, in my case, marketers. So the things you need to keep in mind are your title, which you customize, should have the right buzzwords and credentials. I get worried when employees don't include their current employer like I do. It makes it look like they're looking. So be aware as an employer and as an employee what that tells your employer. So you should be describing your key strengths and your skills and your unique abilities, as I might say, but also incorporating real keywords on how people might find you. And then your headshot is important. So ideally not one cropped with your ex-husband or ex-girlfriend in the side, barely seen on the side. The photo that I use is actually in an alley off Alberta Street in Northeast Portland. And a friend of mine who's a professional photographer just grabbed my phone from me, held it up and took this picture, and the lighting was good. And I like it. I'm not very photogenic, so it particularly works for me. Picking a right masthead image. This is a nighttime time-lapse shot of the Anvil building. in the background. They're very subtle. You might want to swap those out as needed, maybe quarterly or seasonally. I already mentioned the importance of posting blog posts directly onto LinkedIn, at least one or two. And then you can post PowerPoints from the past into SlideShare, which has now changed ownership once again. Microsoft was bought by LinkedIn and then by default Microsoft. Now it's owned by Scribe. So take it or leave it. I still, the SlideShare links in my profile are very old. I hadn't updated it. And then, make sure you post status updates, usually fed from, Twitter, Facebook, or elsewhere, or just original content. Make sure you've been endorsed for skills, or people have written recommendations you can see, and also make sure that you've filled out the background adequately. So these are just examples. I've received 94 recommendations. I've given 76. I blog regularly. Some of my posts have more visibility than others. But I always try to have the most robust LinkedIn profile possible, so I can set a standard and educate others. So it's been a very powerful platform for me. In fact, we secured our largest client in Anvil's history from an initial outreach through LinkedIn to a first-degree connection. I knew her, she knew me. The timing was perfect. We ended up talking. Now 2 years later, they're our largest client. So LinkedIn is great for prospecting. I don't have a premium account after a month of trying it. I didn't see any real benefit. So I've been using all the organic free features with great success. You can read articles on that, as well as a separate article that I linked to at the end of this on how to build your following. Because if you are watching this and don't have a huge following, you need to start building that momentum. Now, I have been curating my social feed in terms of volume. I don't think there are very many people that have created more volume in terms of posts that don't professionally get paid to do social. I don't. I get paid to consult occasionally on social, but I do it because I love it and I feel like I need to test it and lead from the front. But I did make last year the 92 in the top 100 BuzzSumo digital marketing influencers. Didn't make it for, that was for 19, didn't make it for this year. That's okay. That's not why I'm in this. But those are great lists to see who you should follow in terms of find industry lists of influencers and follow them and learn from them and engage them. And you can use other tools like Follower Wonk and Social Blade and other free and low-cost tools to identify potential connections that you should follow and engage with. But easy things to do: follow back new followers, use hashtags liberally. They've become a lot more widely accepted, therefore do not have the same bump that they used to. I remember I used to use the hashtag voice search on articles around the SEO or search engine optimization element of smart speakers and personal digital assistants. And my average posts might get 100 impressions on Twitter. With my voice search hashtag like 6, 9, 12 months ago, it would boost it to like 900 to 1,000 impressions. So anywhere from a 5 to 10x. Now it's barely a 2x using hashtags or not hashtags on the same post over time. I usually test those. Obviously, compelling content is important. Engaging conversation, I'm very bad at it, but it's very effective when done right. You can boost posts to artificially inflate visibility, which artificially gains, it can help naturally grow your followers at an artificially high rate. But what I do most is I share timely news and information as a filter, better than anybody else, or sufficiently enough to have combined my two Twitter profiles, have about 8,000, 9,000 followers. But really, I care mostly about LinkedIn because that's my audience. So with that foundation, that's how you can better achieve these or implement these 4 strategies I'm talking through. So number 1 is secure speaking engagements. I remember having graduated in 94, when I moved to web development and search engine optimization in mid to late 96, I was asked by my company to go to Orlando to speak at a conference. I'd never been to Orlando, and of all people, I was speaking to college professors from around the world about the internet. So a little more than 2 years after graduating, I went from sitting in a seat listening to a professor tell me what to do or how to think to doing the same to the professors. It was a crazy experience. I was immediately hooked. It's not for everybody, speaking, public speaking, etc. I've always enjoyed it, and I also enjoy teaching. So I've been an adjunct at Portland State University, where I currently teach a search marketing workshop as part of a digital certification under the CEPE, or continuing education program. I started guest speaking there in '98, just a couple years after I started my career. And then those professors that invited me to speak suggested me to the operational side, the program directors say, hey, would you be willing on teaching class? So I did a market research class. I did a B2B marketing class, an e-marketing class, and eventually honed in on my passion and my expertise in search marketing, and been doing that for over a decade. But I would teach if I won the lottery tomorrow or retired. I just want to teach. That's why I also once a quarter do a social media workshop for SCORE. Next one's in January. Just had one earlier a couple weeks ago, but I've been doing that for 5 years. So teaching is natural to me, and that's a key form of speaking. I've had some people, friends, peers, come to me and say, "How do you become an adjunct professor?" And I'm like, just get in front of them, start by guest speaking, and work your way up. If you have a master's, an MBA, that helps. I do not, so I don't grade assignments. And also would preclude me from a career at, particularly at Portland Community College, versus at Harvard. They don't require an MBA if you're really good at what you do, but I don't think I'm going to get that invite. Won't hold my breath. The other, I started by '98. I was also speaking at industry conferences like Search Engine Strategies, SMX, and these other search marketing industries conferences. But then they became, about 10 years ago, they became so commercialized and such a group of peers talking to each other that I really quit speaking at those conferences and started focusing on more general digital summit as a conference, big overarching, where I was only one core expertise that I would talk to, managing online reviews or influencer marketing or whatever it was. So I wasn't just talking to people that were like me or knew more than me. And then I started moving into industry vertical conferences like SEMA, the auto show. I spoke at an event called Digital Marketing Institute, Digital Marketing Summit, which is different than the Digital Summit, of course. And SEMA, the automotive show, that's the second largest conference in Vegas today. They liked what I had to say, and they ended up signing on as a client. And as part of that, I got to speak at their conference. That led to 2 other conferences that are in the automotive space, because they looked at the agenda. Hey, you spoke at SEMA, you're good enough for us. And then I have also helped co-create events like SEM PDX's Search Fest event, now called Engage. Initech helped launch that in Austin as a speaker for their e-marketing curriculum over 10 years ago. So when you help shape events, you obviously have more say. And then there are occasions where I will buy my way in to speak at these, what you call sales or marketing networking events. So Richmond events, Marcus Evan events, you pay them a lot of money, 10 to 20, $30,000, and you get anywhere from 5 to 30 minutes with brand contacts. For me, it's heads of marketing for large brands. And I might have 15 meetings a day for a day and a half or 2 days. So 20, 30 meetings, it's exhausting. But I've gotten dozens of clients from that. Usually not as big as I would like, but definitely the names are big. And so that's been a pay to play, and I've turned those networking events into speaking opportunities, which usually cost more to get in front of them as a speaking expert. So my advice, start small, start local with your local chamber of commerce, other business development or similar organizations, industry trade organizations. The great thing about industry trade organizations, for me, I've been speaking for 20, 25 years at American Marketing Association, Portland Advertising Federation, PRSA, IABC, where there's an Oregon or a Portland chapter, then they refer me nationally. So it took 20 years, but I finally submitted. Unfortunately, the timing was wrong for earlier in March. I was approved a year ago to go speak in New Zealand at a big IABC conference in Wellington. And 2 days before we were scheduled to leave in mid-March, we canceled due to COVID. So I have yet to get to New Zealand, but that led to global exposure by speaking multiple times here locally, and that led to regional conferences where I've been speaking at IABC on the East Coast and the Midwest. I've been doing more of those regionally. I've done that for PRSA as well, and then those led to I was reached out to do host workshops 12 years ago in Singapore and Hong Kong, full day e-marketing workshops for expats. thankfully, because I don't know Chinese, and luckily everybody there spoke English. But those paid opportunities also can happen. So start small, go regional, leverage to national to international. I do not sell. I sell my expertise to help the audience, the students, whoever they're, whether they're business executives or truly students. But I do offer educational follow-ups, calls to action, and historically my best and largest clients came from speaking at least 10 to 20 years ago. But I haven't stopped speaking because, as I mentioned, I love to do it. It's a great way to get exposure. And the benefit to going virtual now is you can do more events way more cost effectively. They're not nearly as engaging often, but they still work. And then the other secret sauce I have is I follow up same day with all of my new connections or meetings or event attendees that give me a business card. Give me a card and I'll send you this deck and some other bonus material. I get all their contact info, add them to a drip campaign, and nurture those relationships. And that's outside of the hot leads that may come out of those speaking engagements. So last time I spoke at SEMA last fall, we ended up with a new client, etc. So speaking, whether you're trying to generate revenue from the speaking engagement or trying to generate new business from speaking, always take that informative value-add approach, and it pays dividends. Second strategy is syndicated articles. If you're a writer, this is like shooting ducks in a barrel, fish in a barrel, I guess, because why would ducks be in a barrel? But you get my drift. Syndicated articles. This is where you write some heartfelt, well-researched, well-written, and ideally proofed and reviewed content in the 800 to 3,000 word range. And then you, if you haven't already pitched the idea or don't already have a relationship, you can shop that article around. So I've written for a variety of publications over the years. Online Marketing Institute, which is defunct. iMedia, their editorial arm is defunct. But I still write for SmartBrief and SEM PDX. SmartBrief, it's been a couple months since my last article. Portland Business Journal is another that I write for, and one just hit today. I mentioned earlier, I'm part of their leadership trust, so it's not behind a firewall. It gets more exposure. I found it's helpful to get out there. This is more of the things that I learn and want to share that are business oriented. I might write for Portland Business Journal. If it's digital marketing, I'll write for SmartBrief or SEM PDX. And the beauty of this is I've been building these relationships for 2 decades. Online Marketing Institute started working with them and writing for them 15 years ago. SmartBrief 10 years ago or more. SEM PDX, I co-founded the organization in 2006, so 14 years I've been involved. And I've contributed more blog posts than any other board member or founding member because I like to write. And then iMedia I used to write a lot for, and usually the deal was I'd write a long form article for Online Marketing Institute or iMedia or SEM PDX in the 1,500 to 3,000 word range, usually averaging around 2,000 words. And then I would chop that into 2 to 3 articles, 2 to 3 parts for SmartBrief or Portland Business Journal, or do a shorter version. So recycling, repurposing that content so that one content component could be utilized 2 to 3 different ways. So for instance, I've written an article on how to build your brand through public relations for Portland Business Journal. And what I used as the baseline or outline for this deck was an article first. And then I decided, well, I'll create a deck out of it because I've already done all the heavy lifting by writing the article. Sometimes I go the other way around. I'll create a presentation, use that as the outline to then write the article. In fact, that's more often how I do it. I'm asked to speak on something, and before or after I speak, I write the article as a follow-on for more information. Then I might create a webinar that is then recorded and then posted to YouTube and SlideShare. So that's potentially 4 pieces of content, including 1 article on iMedia might be 2 articles as 2 parts on SmartBrief. So that's 3 components alone. If I YouTube record this with video, I can add it to YouTube or as a screen share, and I can strip out the audio as a podcast. So again, there are a lot of ways to take a half hour to an hour worth of content and create an article or a blog post. And so what I found successful is taking content that I have deep knowledge of in my industry and going and sharing it into industry verticals. So I've written articles for A Place for Mom in the senior care space, which is one of our verticals. I've written and been published on an entrepreneur group called EO, where I syndicate certain articles to that network just to get different exposure to different audiences. So uniquely customize that content for each industry And with a light re-edit of an article, it can be repurposed and seem fresh and relevant to a new audience. You can see we've written so many articles. We have categories on our website in our insights section. I recommend checking it out. We even recently launched a podcast section to our insights or resources because we've hosted or been guest on so many podcasts. It's a dedicated section now. So speaking and syndicated articles, and one can beget the other. A really well-written article can help you pitch and secure speaking, or a long speaking CV resume can help you pitch to become a writer for a publication, a desirable publication. So those feed each other. And then the third element that also can help feed both speaking and writing is to become an expert to the press. Now, again, my career started in '94 in PR. Spent about 2 years learning the ins and outs and the fundamentals, the press tours, the press releases, the pitching the press media, and the media stories on behalf of clients, ghostwriting articles, submitting for awards. All of that I've taken that tool set with me, and it has done me very well, particularly at Anvil the last 20 years. So to get started, you can utilize tools like Cision's Help a Reporter Out. They acquired this list from the original founder, Peter Shankman. And it's basically free. 3 newsletters go out daily with pitch requests from editors from around the world, typically in English. As far as I know, it's only in English. And you can see an example of one of the posts. Proxy keywords for wealthy clients. Kate Harrison from Forbes magazine. Usually if it's a big high profile publication, it says anonymous. So you don't get flooded, but you also don't know who it is yet. So I responded with the hard to read probably. I saw your request in Harlow, thought I'd respond. I have a template that I use and then I customize, but because I've been pitching anywhere from 3 to 10 times a week for the last 6 years, or at least 5 years, I tend to be able to recycle older posts. I use the same pitch the same week, rarely the same day, but often within a year or two, it's still fresh. A lot of the timely requests, they come back in style, the topics. And so I recycle my pitches. And what I also do is if it's a detailed pitch where I spend, instead of 30 seconds reformatting, I spend 5, 10, 15 minutes crafting a response, I might find even if I don't get coverage, I'm going to turn this pitch into a blog post because our editors are paid to find the latest news and to do research on the latest news. So what a better source for what's trending and what's important and what editors are looking for experts on, become that expert. So many times, countless times, honestly, I've pitched myself as an expert on something that I'm tertiarily an expert on, but I have passion for it or some knowledge. And then I bone up on that topic. Usually when they come to me, I actually don't often pitch topics I don't know well, but often when they reach out to me and say, would you be a resource, I bone up on it, become an expert, and then I write an article about it. So the finished product is on the far right. How to target wealthy consumers with Facebook's new stripped down demographic options. Again, this came back when Cambridge Analytica blew up and they had to limit the targeting features on Facebook. So I talked with my team, got their feedback, wrote that 1-paragraph response, and that ended up having a conversation with her on the phone. And then there you can see I mentioned a link back from a domain authority site of '94 is highly coveted. So getting link juice or Google juice from a highly credible site is worth its weight in gold. So just as an SEO strategy, securing press coverage and mentions is money. So I review them 3 times a day. I pitch the most relevant. I recycle past pitches into content, whether it's articles, blog posts, or presentations. I will promote that content regularly through my social feeds and my sales efforts. I mentioned how powerful it is with SEO, but it's also just good PR. But especially on sales, it's a social proof metric. You know, how many people that are pitching you have been regularly quoted in the press. And by regular, I mean Anvil has averaged over 100 press mentions a year the last 3 years, and we're going to do it again this year, based almost entirely on Haro requests and outreach. And those those requests may lead to other requests as well. And fourth and finally, earn credibility through industry awards. Many of my former employees and peers and coworkers and even bosses that weren't PR people by trade thought that it was kind of a fool's errand to submit for awards. Not necessarily fool errands, because I mostly worked at marketing agencies that see that, on the creative side especially, it's really important to get secure awards and show your awards in the trophy case as a credibility, because creative is otherwise very hard to measure unless it's been voted by peers, experts, judges, or clients as being world class. But one of the first awards I got back in 15 of any merit was a 40 under 40 when I was well under 40. Now I'm not so well under 40. And then I guess it wasn't that. This is actually an old logo. It was more than 10 years ago I got 40 under 40. Since then, as a company, which is what I care about, is securing awards for my company, not so much for myself. I've been a marketer of the year, a BuzzFeed influencer, a top influencer in digital. All these folks have different metrics, but I care, and what I'm most passionate about are the company awards that I've submitted for or not submitted for, but still won. Most philanthropic, most admired, fastest growing, greenest companies, best places to work. That means a good deal to me, and it also helps with recruiting efforts, to be sure, and even prospects may appreciate some of those awards. So submit to them. I generally do not pay for the submissions, so I look for awards that have free submission processes, like Portland Business Journal doesn't charge. Creative awards are typically expensive. There's a lot of work that goes into evaluating creative work. I've been a judge for the AMA Max Awards, and it's very time-consuming but very rewarding. So there's industry, local, and business awards you can submit for. Just keep an eye out for them. And the other thing that helps with awards is to do good things, like maximize the hours and contributions of time and money for volunteering. So we have a quarterly charity of choice, and this year we've supported twice as many charities due to COVID, George Floyd, racial unrest, and voting in this upcoming election have all been passion projects for the Anvil team. But awards will find you if you have enough visibility. We do not pay for any awards. So there are people like, you've been whitelisted or shortlisted as a finalist for a set award. And I'm like, if it costs money, I'm not interested. So all the awards we've won, there was no money changing hands. So we use these in our marketing, in our sales. These proof points are now on our website, on the homepage. So it's just that social proof that makes it less risky for a new client or a potential employee to sign on board. So those are, in short, the 4 key strategies, including a little foundational work on building your social presence. Because if you're getting these awards, securing speaking engagements, authoring articles, etc., and just generally contributing content, through owned media, you need that social amplification for yourself and for your business. So that social presence is really important. All of these articles are related. So the How to Build Your Personal Brand via Public Relations is on Portland Business Journal site as an example. I have written all of these articles. These are all articles or resources that I've provided that just elaborate on any one of these points: how to become a speaker, how to become an influencer, how to build a podcast, which is its own thing, how to become a better social networker. So I've pretty much already written on every of these core 4 strategies in some fashion. So you utilize these articles. This copy of this will be available on SlideShare and on YouTube as a recording by the end of the week. So now I would like to open it up to any questions you may have. If you are impatient, you can email me, Kent@AnvilMedia, for a copy of this deck in PDF. I do recommend checking out our Insights section for more information, our events section for when we're speaking next, and certainly sign up for our monthly newsletter at Anvil and at Mindshare, pdxmindshare.com. And then if you're looking to grow your business, we always offer a free audit of your online presence. It takes about 40 minutes to present. It takes us an hour or 2 to put together. So it's basically free consulting, no obligation to go to a proposal or anything further. That's just part of our give back educational focus at Anvil. So I want to again thank you for your time, and let's open it up to questions. Anybody have any questions? And feel free to use the little chat box in the bottom left, and then I'm happy to answer those questions. And then again, you will be able to if you missed anything, we will have a question, and we will have a recording of this available. So I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, check our Insight section and check our events section for more information. And we'll hope to see you all soon at the next Anvil Lunch and Learn. Thanks again. And